Hello everyone, my name is Kriti Monga. I'm a graphic designer in New Delhi, India. I've been practicing as a graphic designer and illustrator for the past 16 years, 10 of which have been running a branding and design studio. I'm also an independent lettering artist. I've been teaching courses and modules over the last 15 years at various design schools in India and abroad, as well as independent workshops, activities, and forums. I'm very interested in design education, and I'm always curious about how to make especially type learning more effective and fun. Why do foundational students need to love type? Because it's only then that they will really enthusiastically undertake the long journey towards mastering it as a craft, and then the longer journey required for developing a deep sense and thoughtfulness for it. Of course, there's all the theory and established teaching steps: anatomy, tools, classifications, type history, basic type design, typography and layout, the technical details, the cultural concerns, etc. But also, let's be honest, it's quite a drag at the start. As for all art forms, a lot of rigor, discipline, repetitions, critique, demonstrations, discussions are all required, and lots of students drop out of fear or boredom. Studies have also shown that our minds retain new information and patterns most when we are happy, inspired, and fully engaged. So, allow me to make a case for the role of play alongside practice. I'm known to call it making friends with type. My favorite icebreaker to cut through stiffness in a new class is making name tags for each other. And design is a collaborative and giving activity, so we make tags for our neighbor, not for ourselves. We do start with history and anatomy lectures because you need some context. I just try and make them more informal, animated, conversational. How letters evolved, how they've always changed, the nature of linguistics and culture, focusing on humanizing type, making it accessible and lovable. Use type terms, lots of bad type jokes. No one's going to really memorize entire history from a lesson anyway, but if I do it right, they might develop a love for it. My own love for letterforms began with Professor Mahendra Patel, my typography teacher at NID. Fond memories of him personifying letters. He'd say, "Do you notice? This guy is a little fat," or "That guy is falling," etc. He had this light in his eyes, and he would enact all of it, stuff that would make us giggle, and then look at our letters differently. I've learned a lot more about type after those foundational years, of course, but my love for letters comes from Mahendra Bhai. So I try and pass that energy on. My approach to form is to start with tools: round, flat edged, or pointed, angle or pressure. Just getting curious about what you could potentially do with what. No rules yet. Students are invited to experiment and get curious about their tools. So and you start to think about posture and movement, etc. And then brush lettering is a happy, easy place to start, to introduce rhythm, instill some confidence. We begin talking about spacing, format, stroke order. That's Dr. Shelley Grunler, by the way. These pictures are from Type Camp India that we taught together and hope to start again soon. In a longer class, I'll introduce some historical calligraphy styles that students can practice: foundational hand, black letter, etc. Again, the focus is not on becoming calligraphers, but as a way to look at form and spacing. We learn to self-critique kindly, and we call mistakes charming. We progress assuredly, but don't call them drills. The students get really comfortable and are encouraged to draw letters everywhere, which I think they often take quite literally. If you sat at a desk doing drills all day, feeling like you're the most unskilled person on earth, you'd get frustrated and leave. So just when everyone's getting shifty, we take the action out into the sunshine. We use mops and brooms and sponges of many shapes and sizes, dipped in buckets of water, and draw giant letters. When they evaporate, we draw again. So now the entire body has to get involved, and you really have to pay attention to form in that scale. Interestingly, this gets students more loosened up. There's no fear of making mistakes anymore because it's all going to evaporate and you can try again. And public spaces are happy to be washed. Unlike graffiti, you're actually cleaning the surface you're drawing on. And students, of course, get cheeky as ever. This wall belonged to a movie theater next to my class in Denmark. The manager was not happy. They'll draw giant post-it notes to each other. If your class happens to be close to a beach, you can practice in the sand. You can also try painting with light. Of course, the form won't be perfect just as yet, but teach students that letters are joy and you will see it in what they write. There's no escaping ornamentation, so I say give a place and a context for it. Celebrate the beauty and pleasure with large erasable drop caps, hand-drawn on glass doors. This also becomes a really good opportunity to talk about history of design and personality and expression. So that's a good place to come back into context. There's always the question of what is good type, of influences and exposure. Students have stylistic preferences, etc. So a type walk is a good way to have this conversation with students and to bring them into openness and curiosity rather than judgment of taste. India, of course, is a wonderful place for these walks. So many scripts, there's inspiration everywhere. Students learn to see their neighborhood or city with new eyes. We come back with photos of our favorite specimens, but also many good questions. And anyone who teaches knows that raising a good question is more valuable than giving all the answers. Back in the classroom, we take observations further into experiments. We make more letters to match the chosen ones. Sometimes we'll make companion letters in a different script. While this is not possible in shorter workshops, I love this letterform invention exercise that Shelley and I do at Type Camp. You take an abstract inspiration like noodles, and then you use calligraphy and lettering principles to turn it into a fictitious letterform, and then you give it a sound. So when the class puts it all together, they've created a rudimentary script and a language. So it's a very quick and dirty introduction to type design, even for non-designers. We encourage students to practice lettering by painting signboards for neighborhood businesses that can't afford their own. At Type Camp Japan, we made signboard sculptures in hiragana letters as thanks for our host village. So, tactile play isn't just romantic arts and crafts. It actually gets students intensely engaged. Even the serious type designer could find their brain expanded in new ways when they use their hands to make something unexpected. Typerventions started out as type interventions in 2010. A bunch of us young designers in Delhi, tired of sitting in chairs, clicking mouse all day, started playing with modular letterform sculptures in public spaces, using everyday materials, spelling inspiring messages or phrases in the streets. Each typervention weekend generated so much excitement about type that I started to wonder if I could take this into classrooms as a teachable format. Basic modular type is a great, simple, lo-fi way to look at type design. It's also thinking versus decoration. I mean, you can decorate with modular type, but you'll have to take forcibly structured ways to do it. So we started to make things with locally common everyday materials. We try to leave a minimal footprint. Installations are designed to fit sweetly into existing spaces and be easily removable. Sometimes they become tea time sandwiches afterwards, or like dry leaves tucked into a fence without any adhesives, just a weird sculpture in the park that will fall out in bits and pieces on its own over time. Many of my India type friends have been pulled in at some point or the other. Kalapi and I actually made the first ever typervention experiment together near my studio in Delhi, and Pooja Saxena designed these gorgeous letters at Type Camp. It's also an opportunity to play Lego with different scripts, like the eggs here. They're literally building blocks. It's possible to move them around and easily play with shapes, stroke weights, etc. Yellow colored pencils, isometric grid, colored tape on a wall, and candles. Mm, Always a great way to end a workshop by lighting them up. Juice or coffee injected into bubble wrap, also a crowd favorite, very addictive to make these. Eggs in trays. In fact, this particular team got the hang of it so fast, they made a regular bold and italic version of the word. And at the end, a little surprise. The words come together to make a phrase. Change what you cannot accept, accept what you cannot change. And here's a glimpse from some of the other workshops. Popcorn in a fence, food for the birds afterwards. Do one thing every day that scares you. Creativity is your, these are banana leaves, intelligence. And all of these are created within a few hours. So it's really meant to be a mad, fast sprint. And you're so consumed with trying to finish the piece, you have no time to think. So you just focus on making it. And then there's a moment of revelation in the end when you realize what just happened. This one was in Brixton, London, where David Bowie was born. The greatest thing you'll ever learn is to love and be loved in return. Thank you.